Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass have already proven their incompetence and poor leadership during the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, as we experience rampant lawlessness and civil unrest, it's never been more clear. The state isn't just burning in flames, it's burning in corruption, arrogance, and delusion. And while the establishment scrambles to protect its golden boy, others aren't holding back. Cyrus joked about it like he was watching someone negotiate with a deaf prostitute. Absurd, yes, but somehow it feels fitting when you see how Gavin Newsom stumbles through leadership as though he's stuck in a bad improv skit. Then enters Mel Gibson, storming in like he's auditioning for Mad Max. Governor edition, eyes blazing, words sharper than knives. And behind him, Cyrus follows, built like a wall of granite, carrying the kind of disdain that only comes from being done with nonsense. Together, they march into the public square and tear Gavin Newsom apart like a comedy roast no one asked for. It wasn't politics as usual. This was Hollywood chaos, colliding with heavyweight reality checks. Gibson didn't mince words, Tyrus didn't sugarcoat, and Newsom, well, poor Gavin suddenly found himself the unwilling star of the roast of the decade. You could almost hear the invisible drum roll as Mel leaned into the microphone and started listing the failures like he was announcing the nominees for worst governor in America. And the failures aren't hard to find. California has become an overpriced amusement park where all the rides are broken, bathrooms locked, sidewalks covered in tents, and yet they still charge you $50 for parking. Wildfires rage while basic infrastructure crumbles. People are leaving the state in droves. Newsom parades himself as a polished progressive savior, while his citizens are forced to live in what feels like Gotham City without a Batman. That's not leadership. That's theater. But Gibson wasn't just outraged by incompetence. He was disgusted by the phoniness. As a man who has lived in Hollywood his entire life, he knows when someone's reading lines from a script instead of speaking from the gut. Gavin Newsom doesn't just come across as insincere, he comes across as a walking shampoo commercial. Every word rehearsed, every expression calculated, every hair perfectly in place, as though solving homelessness was just another campaign photo shoot. Gibson looked at him and saw what everyone else is too polite to say. A fraud. Tyrus, meanwhile, didn't bother with theatrics. His presence alone screamed ridicule. He compared Newsom's public speaking to someone sending Morse code with his blinking eyes. He mocked the governor's obsession with gestures and fake gravitas, making it clear that when Gavin talks, it's not about substance, it's about performance. Watching him is like watching a soap opera character who never realized he wasn't cast as the hero. California's so-called leaders keep insisting things are under control, even as their state descends into chaos. During the wildfires, they stood in front of cameras and told people not to worry, that everything was fine, while thousands lost their homes, including Mel Gibson himself. That's what gave his critique so much fire. This wasn't abstract policy debate. This was personal. He's lived the disaster these leaders have created, and now he's turned his outrage into a wrecking ball aimed right at Newsom's glossy facade. Tyrus backed him with the blunt force of someone who doesn't waste time on polite phrasing. Newsom, he said, is like a man allergic to accountability. He talks about homelessness like it's someone else's problem, as if he isn't the governor. Imagine a firefighter standing in front of a burning house, shrugging and saying, "Yeah, this is really bad," instead of grabbing a hose. That's Gavin Newsom, and it's that disconnect between what he says and what he does that has left Californians furious and outsiders shaking their heads. The irony of this spectacle is that Newsom wanted to be the star. He wanted to be the shining face of Democratic leadership, the polished golden boy destined for the presidency. He strutted onto national stages, delivering speeches that sounded like TED Talks for people who hate reality. He crafted an image so slick it could survive a hurricane. But Gibson and Tyrus ripped it to shreds in minutes. They didn't just criticize him, they mocked him into meme territory. Suddenly, the man who imagined himself as a presidential looked more like the comic relief in someone else's show. Gibson's fury came wrapped in cinematic intensity. He compared Newsom's leadership to a performance so shallow it wouldn't make it past the first cut of a straight 2D action flick. Tyrus delivered his takedowns like a wrestler dropping elbows from the top rope, calling him exactly what he is, a disaster in hair gel. Together, they didn't just roast him, they annihilated the myth of Gavin Newsom as a competent leader. It's not just the roast itself that matters, it's what it symbolizes. Newsom thought he could stage manage his way through scandals with a smirk and a sound. He thought people cared more about his jawline than his policies. But when critics outside the usual political circle, an actor and a wrestler, step in and drag him with surgical precision, it exposes how flimsy the act really is. If you can't even survive a tag team takedown from Mel Gibson and Tyrus, how do you expect to run for president? Newsom's biggest problem is that he mistakes appearance for substance. He is the knockoff designer bag of politics, looks expensive from a distance, falls apart the second you use it. California, under his leadership, isn't the land of dreams anymore. It's a fail compilation in real time. Sky-high crime, mass Homelessness, unaffordable housing, rolling blackouts, and wildfires that rage while he smiles for the cameras. He presides over collapse with the same smugness as a man selling snake oil, and that's what makes Gibson and Tyrus's critique so devastating. They stripped away the polish and forced everyone to see what's underneath. Not a visionary leader, not a future president, just a man hiding incompetence behind perfect hair and empty speeches. Watching them dismantle him was like watching a blooper reel for a campaign ad. Every smile, every gesture, every smirk became a punchline. Imagine if he ever made it to a presidential debate stage. On one side, seasoned fighters ready to clash on policy. On the other, Gavin Newsom, practicing his smile in the mirror, hoping the lighting hits him just right. Mel Gibson would call it a parody. Tyrus would call it what it is, a mismatch so glaring it feels like satire. America doesn't need a hair model in the Oval Office. It needs a leader. And if California is any proof, Gavin Newsom is not that man. What makes this moment legendary is that Gibson and Tyrus didn't just argue. They humiliated, they roasted, they dragged him from the pedestal he built for himself and showed everyone that the emperor has no clothes, only overpriced pomade. And the internet loved it. Memes exploded, clips went viral, and the takedown spread like wildfire fitting, given that wildfires are exactly what Newsom couldn't handle. In the end, what we're left with isn't just a takedown, it's a warning, a reminder that image doesn't equal leadership, that slick speeches don't fix wildfires, that perfect hair doesn't solve homelessness, and that when real people are suffering, no amount of photo ops can hide the truth. Gavin Newsom may still hold the title of governor, but after Mel Gibson and Tyrus got through with him, he'll forever be remembered as the man who thought he was auditioning for the presidency, but ended up as the butt of the roast of the century. If you're tired of phony leaders, if you're done with polished images and empty promises, if you want the truth behind the chaos, then you know what to do. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the real story behind the headlines. Because as long as leaders like Newsom keep faking it, we'll be here to expose it.